Let's kick things off by talking about the man himself, Mayo Zambada. If you're not familiar with him, don't worry, that's kind of the point. Unlike his former partner, El Chapo, who loved the limelight, Mayo's always been more of a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. Born on New Year's Day, 1948, in a little town called El Alamo in Sinaloa, Mexico, Ismael Zambada Garcia didn't exactly come from a life of luxury. His family were poor farmers, and young Ismael spent his early years working the fields. But he had bigger dreams, and unfortunately, for the rest of the world, those dreams involved the drug trade. Mayo got his start in the 1960s as a small-time marijuana farmer. Back then, the drug trade in Mexico was pretty simple. Grow some weed, smuggle it across the border, and profit. But Mayo had a knack for the business, and he quickly moved up the ranks. By the 1970s, he was working with the big boys of the Mexican drug trade, including the infamous Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the godfather of the Mexican drug trade. But when Félix Gallardo's empire fractured in the late 1980s, Mayo was right there to pick up the pieces, helping to form what we now know as the Sinaloa cartel. Now, here's where Mayo's story diverges from your typical narco tale. While most drug lords tend to have a meteoric rise followed by a spectacular fall, Mayo's been more like the tortoise in the race. Slow, steady, and incredibly hard to catch.
We haven't really had a photo of this guy probably for 25 years.
For over 5 decades, he's managed to stay at or near the top of the drug game without ever being arrested. That's pretty much unheard of in this line of work. Even his longtime partner, El Chapo, famous for his prison escapes, couldn't avoid capture forever.
A news alert coming out on this one. The infamous El Chapo headed our way. He's now being extradited to the U.S. from Mexico. The drug lord Joaquin Guzman recaptured after 6 months on the run. You'll remember back in 2015, he escaped a Mexico City prison through a ventilated tunnel, which he accessed in his own prison cell.
But Mayo? He's like a ghost. So how's he done it? Well, for one, he keeps a much lower profile than most drug lords. No flashy parties, no interviews with Sean Penn, no bragging on social media. Mayo's more likely to be found in a modest safe house in the mountains than in a luxury penthouse. He's also known for his strategic alliances and his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. When the heat's on in one area, he shifts operations elsewhere. When one smuggling method gets compromised, he comes up with a new one. The guy's like the chameleon of the drug world. But perhaps most importantly, Mayo's known for his connections. We're talking high-level government officials, military brass, even some say U.S. intelligence agencies. Now, no one can confirm or deny any of that, but let's just say Mayo's got friends in high places, if recent headlines are anything to go by.
Well, now that Mexico's former top cop is behind bars, the attention turns to the man who got away. A case that further proves corruption can rise all the way to the top. Genaro Garcia Luna was convicted of taking massive bribes to protect drug cartels he was supposed to be taking down.
Genaro Garcia Luna helped the Sinaloa drug cartel smuggle more than 50 tons of cocaine into the U.S. Prosecutors called in former members of the cartel to testify against Luna. They claimed he received more than $200 million in bribes.
And that's just what we know, thanks to the dedicated work of Mexican law enforcement. Now, imagine what we have yet to discover. All of this has allowed Mayo to build an empire that stretches far beyond Mexico's borders as well. We're talking operations in the US, Europe, Asia, and even Australia.
The best ways they can capitalize their profits is to mitigate risk, and of course risk is international law enforcement. So they're constantly looking for new routes, new avenues to get their drugs to wholesale markets and ultimately consumer markets.
Here we have a little container that was found inside of a big container. It appeared to be full of drugs, so not even hidden between other goods, just a whole small container filled with 11 tons of goods.
At its peak, the Sinaloa cartel, under Mayo and El Chapo, was estimated to be responsible for up to half of all illegal drugs entering the U.S. That's billions of dollars worth of product, folks.
And right now, Mayo Zambada is worth close to $10 billion. And I'll remind you, that's a lot of money. There's 1,000 million in 1 billion.
But here's the thing about being on top. There's nowhere to go but down. And as we're about to see, even the mighty El Mayo might not be able to outrun the natural passage of time and the inevitable downfall that we all eventually succumb to.